everyone, my name is Stephanie from the Farmhouse Mom, and this spring we are building raised garden beds, and we are only using free or salvaged material. Welcome back to my channel. I am going to give you a tour of our burgeoning garden this morning, and I'm going to show you what we have. I'm going to show you what we are doing with the garden, also the material that we are salvaging, and how we are planning on building 6 or 7 raised bed gardens. We already have 3, but we'd like to build 6 or 7 more and only use salvage material. My husband and I are working very hard to be debt free, and so we are really trying to budget and do what we can. Instead of buying rock, we are digging it up. Let's go ahead. I'm going to give you a little tour of my garden, and then I'm going to show you where we are salvaging all of our dirt and everything that we use to fill up our bed.
Here are the 3 raised beds that we had in last year's garden. Back in the back, we have strawberries. In that middle section, we have garlic, and we just planted some onion seeds. And then on the other bed that I'm about to whip around to right now is where I have planted some lavender seeds to transplant.
We are starting a lavender garden, lavender farm on the lower part of the land. And last year I experimented a little bit and I grew a certain variety of lavender. I cannot remember the name of it, but I grew it and it did really well in our clay soil. So we are starting another burgeoning new business. I'm hoping we have some lavender blooms this fall so we can do a few events on the farm. But if not, we will have got it started and we will be ready for next year.
We added 2 large garden beds to the garden this weekend. We have an old barn that is on the property. It was the only structure that was here when we moved 4 years ago. And inside the barn, there were 4 or 5 animal stalls, and they used them for cows. And so they were really nice, big, thick wood panels. We have been able to use that wood for chicken coops. We've used it for goat structures. My husband also made a beautiful plate rack in my kitchen. And this weekend, we were able to make a 5x8 garden bed and then a 5x10 garden bed. As you can see, the boards are not wide enough to just use one, and so my husband stacked boards on top of each other. He also used 4x4s in the corner to attach them, and because they are longer beds, they're 10 feet and 8 foot long, my husband made sure that he used a supportive piece in the center, because as you're adding your soil and you're adding your plants inside the bed, it is going to bow out. This is the same wood that we built our previous garden beds out of. We have not noticed any bowing or warping. We believe the wood is probably at least 45 years old, and so it's quite tough. It has been weathered, but still, due to the length, we wanted to add some supports just to make sure that everything stays in its place. And here is the finished bed, and we are going to move it into the garden. Another way that we are sourcing wood from our land is in the form of a gardening called Hugelkultur. That is a German method of adding decomposing and rotted wood to your garden beds. There are so many benefits to this Hugelkultur method of gardening. The biggest benefit is it's free. So if you are willing to trade your time and your sweat equity to go out into the forest and pick up rotten wood, especially if you have your own land and your own forest. If you don't, you might have a neighbor that you can go out and pick up wood. But not only is it going to be free to get the wood, it is going to fill up that garden bed so you have to put less soil. Another benefit for us especially is we have very acidic compacted soil. So here in southern Missouri, the biggest crop that we grow is rocks. And because we have this very heavy compacted clay soil and the topsoil that we do have is extremely rocky, it's almost impossible to cultivate a garden out of the ground. It takes a lot of work, a lot of years, and a lot of tilling. So raised bed gardens for us is definitely the way to go. You can see how large these garden beds are and how much soil it would take to fill it, it would easily be hundreds of dollars. So we make sure that we fill almost all the way up to the top with the rotted wood, and as we add the soil it will compress it down a little bit. And you can see around the sides that we have our cardboard that we are laying down. We did not lay that down inside the garden bed. You certainly could, and we will be laying down cardboard when we start our lavender garden, but I just didn't want to take the time to go through and separate the printed and the non-printed. Most ink that is printed on cardboard, I'd say 99% is made from soy, and so generally all of it is safe to put in your garden. However, my husband had taken his blowtorch and he had already burnt all of the garden a few months ago, so we just really didn't need it. I wanted to save a little bit of that cardboard, so we just took the pickaxe and we got rid of any crabgrass that was left, and we surrounded the beds up to the fence to prepare for our rock that we're going to lay on top of the cardboard. Now I'm going to share with you how we source our soil from our farm without having to purchase any. So you can see the wheelbarrow load that my son is dumping on top of our decomposing wood, and that soil is quite dark and beautiful. It is not compacted at all. It's very easy to rake. It's rock free. So let's go over to the goat pen and I'll show you how we make this soil. Here is my newest little baby. I thought you guys might want an update. Her name is Cassandra, and she's doing very well with the big girls. All right, so let's go ahead and head over to our compost pile. So how we get soil is using the animals to our advantage. We rake out all of the straw. Here's my beautiful little townie. She is due with babies in just a couple of weeks, so she's laying her pregnant body out in the sun, getting a little warmth, and she's so adorable. Okay, anyway, moving on. This is where our really beautiful soil is. So inside our barn, we use a deep litter method with the goats. We lay down straw. We also use limestone and wood pellets for their bedding to absorb all of their urine. And when we are cleaning it out either weekly or after the winter is over, we just push it out into the sun. We are quite lazy composters. We do not water it down. We just wait for it to rain. And the reason that it works for us on our land is, as I said before, our soil is quite acidic. And so that alkaline lime that we sprinkle all over the barn is really helpful for our soil, and it brings it up to that pH that we need. So one of the ways you can tell if your soil is acidic is by what grows on it. So we grow a lot of broom grass. That's generally the number one crop that pops up after we mow or burn an area. We have a lot of dandelion, and cedar grows very well in our area. So sometimes that is a way that you can see what type of soil you have without testing it. I'm going to walk into our barn here and just show you visually what we compost with. So again, we have the straw that we lay down for bedding, and then we also have the limestone and then the wood chips that disintegrate down to very fine particle sizes. We generally let our compost age from 6 months to a year. Because we have access to so much of it, it's easy for us to start a pile and use it for the next season. Goat manure isn't necessarily hot. It also does not contain seeds like other animals do, so you can place it right on the garden if you want to, but we tend to let ours age just a little bit just to make sure if the goats possibly had any type of parasite or any type of pathogen that might have passed through. We want to make sure that that goes in the compost heap and that that is not a viable organism when we put it on our garden for our vegetables. Now we're going to go ahead and go down to the creek. While we are here, guys, look at my elderberries.
they have, if you saw the last video, they have popped overnight. But it does not look like much, but this is an entire patch of elderberry. And I also have quite a bit of elderberry over here. That right there, that little patch is elderberry. Look at that beautiful watercress. And I have 4 or 5. Oh, look, honey, let's go down and see them. This is such a beautiful spring surprise for us today. Our jonquils are blooming. Do you guys call them jonquils, or do you call them wild daffodils or daffodils? My grandma always called them jonquils. I think that's maybe more of an old-fashioned term, but that's what I call them. They're so beautiful.
I'm getting a stick so I can pretend it's a tiny stick.
Anyway, we have to stay focused. So our other elderberry patch is right here. It's doing so well. And I'll go ahead and show you some parts on hopefully the wind is not too loud in this outdoor video. I'm going to show you a few parts of the creek that we collect our rock from. We also have really beautiful river rock. I'm also collecting these from the creek so I can make some paths and line a few small flower beds. So we have our beautiful creek here, but we have here where the creek is, and then we have this flat area, which is basically just all washed up rock. We could also get rock any, number of areas from the creek, but this bank area is really nice, and we have several other bank areas that we can, dig up rock and use it.
If you have land, you are one of the luckiest people in the world. There are so many natural, beautiful resources that you can use to grow plants, to grow food for yourself and for your family. While we were out looking for rocks, we stopped by our forest area, and my husband found a double embossed Atlas canning jar. I love to collect vintage glassware, and then I also found this Gibson 1980s little teacup, and we also found a little horse halter. So there's all kinds of treasures out on a farm. Here is our completed raised bed gardens, and it's really easy to look on social media and see everybody going out buying brand new cedar beds and getting it all done in one weekend. And it is really okay to be in a spot where you are working on something, where you are beautifying it. We eventually would like to add picket fences, but for now I am so thrilled with my beautiful garden. We are going to finish out this middle section and add 4 more beds, and we are going to have in a few months a bountiful, beautiful, lush garden full of wonderful food, and I can't wait to share it with you. I'm going to see you again Friday, where I'm going to have another episode of Friday Finds. I got a huge thrift haul of vintage dishes, so I hope to see you Friday, and I hope you have a great week.